The flashing lights bouncing off my front window that morning were supposed to make me look like the bad guy. Or at least that is what my HOA president thought when she rolled up with cops and tow trucks in my driveway. But instead, they lit her up in her spotless white power suit mascara streaking, while a deputy snapped the cuffs on her wrists. She twisted toward my porch and shouted, voice cracking, "You can't arrest me! I run Maple Ridge Estates! This one is ruining our image!" And I was just standing there barefoot with my coffee in one hand and a fat folder in the other, watching the same woman who had promised to make life unlivable for my family, now begging the sheriff to believe a fake court order. One of my cameras caught every second of it, and as the patrol car pulled away and the tow trucks left empty, all I could think was how insane it was that this whole mess started, because some people in expensive houses did not like the way my crooked fence and old work truck looked when they drove past my little place. My name is Jake Miller. I am an electrician, not a lawyer, not some professional troublemaker. And most of my life, I have been the guy people look past, the quiet one who says no worries when somebody cuts in line or parks crooked. So when my wife Hannah and I finally scraped together enough money to buy a tired little 3-bedroom on the edge of a small Arizona town, all I wanted was peace and to be left alone. The house had sun-faded paint, a long gravel driveway that threw dust when my truck rolled in a crooked wooden fence, and a dented metal shed. I turned into a workshop, but to us it felt like freedom. We could sit on the porch at night and hear crickets instead of sirens. And I remember telling Hannah, if nothing big ever happens to me again, I am good with that. Then the survey flags showed up across the road. Then the bulldozers. Then a stone sign that said, Maple Ridge Estates, a deed-restricted community. And within a year, that empty pasture turned into rows of beige houses with perfect lawns and matching mailboxes, the kind of place where even the trash cans look like they had a dress code. At first I figured that was their world, and this was mine. They could have their rules behind their fancy entrance, and I would keep my crooked fence and old truck. You know what I mean. Their power stopped at my property line, or so I thought, until the first envelope showed up in my mailbox. Thick cream paper with a gold logo tucked between my electric bill and a pizza coupon. Hannah was stirring a pot of chili when I opened it and started reading out loud. Dear Resident, which already made me laugh because I was not one of their residents at all. Then it went on about visual harmony and entrance aesthetics, and how my commercial vehicle and deteriorating fence were negatively impacting the welcome experience for Maple Ridge homeowners. Then it kindly requested that I repaint my fence, move my truck, hide my tools, and basically turn my life into their brochure within 14 days. I leaned on the counter and shook my head. Like, you have got to be kidding me, told Hannah. Apparently my ladder and some mud on a truck fender are emotionally scarring the neighborhood, but she did not really laugh. She got that little line between her eyebrows and said, Jake, they sound serious. Maybe just call and explain you are not in their HOA. I kissed her forehead, tossed the letter in the junk drawer and said, Relax, it is just paper. And yeah, that happened. Those were my exact words. The second letter did not feel like just paper. It felt like a threat in legal costume. Big red second notice of non-compliance across the top, a list of violations I did not care about, and at the bottom, a line saying they would start charging $100 a day and maybe file a lien if I did not cure the issues. Signed, Karen Whitfield, President, Maple Ridge Estates, HOA. I stuck that one on the fridge with a chili pepper magnet and tried to shrug when Hannah asked, But my stomach dropped because I grew up poor enough to know how fast a fine you do not owe can still bury you if somebody keeps adding numbers. A few days later, I drove past their new clubhouse, saw a sandwich board that said, "Board meeting tonight, residents only," and some stubborn part of me, the part that was tired of watching my wife tense up every time we checked the mail, decided I was walking in there. That night I went straight from work, still in dusty jeans and boots, pushed open the clubhouse door, and the room went quiet, like someone hit mute about 30 people on folding chairs. A projector slide about. Approved mailbox styles, lavender air freshener in the air. And at the front was Karen in a beige power suit, with pearl earrings and a laser pointer in her hand. She tapped the mic and said, "Excuse me, sir. This is a closed meeting for Maple Ridge residents. Only deliveries use the side entrance." And the way she said deliveries told me exactly where she thought I belonged. I walked right down the middle aisle and stopped at the front row. "I am not a delivery. Name is Jake Miller. Old house by your gate. I am the guy getting your fines," I said. And you could hear this little wave of whispers roll through the room, like I had dragged a stray dog into church. Karen flipped through her notes until she found my name, looked me up and down, and said, "Mr. Miller, you have ignored multiple official communications. Your property sits at the visual gateway to Maple Ridge, and at the moment it communicates neglect and non-compliance. We have standards to protect our investments." And I took a breath and kept my voice as even as I could. "Your standards stop at my fence, ma'am. I am not in your HOA. I never signed your covenants. What I do with my fence and my truck is between me and the county," I said. Some guy in a golf shirt raised his hand like it was homeroom and said, "But your truck is the first thing people see when they drive in. It hurts our curb appeal." And I just looked at him and said, "It is a work truck, not a crime scene." If seeing a ladder and some mud ruins your day, that is not my property value problem. Man, that is your expectations. A couple of people snorted before catching themselves. Karen's smile thinned out, and she leaned into the mic and said, "Maple Ridge has a long-term vision for this entrance. Obstacles to that vision will be removed one way or another." And the way she said "removed" put a chill up my spine. I walked out with every pair of eyes on my back and a knot in my chest that would not go away. After that, it was like somebody at Maple Ridge flipped a harassment switch with my name on it. We started getting letters from different departments with concerns raised by Maple Ridge about my unpermitted structure, calls to the water company hinting the house looked vacant, even an anonymous complaint to my boss about my dusty commercial vehicle. Every time Hannah opened the mailbox, her shoulders crept up like she was bracing for a punch, and I went from annoyed to angry to bone-tired. The day I realized just how far they were willing to go, a white pickup with Maple Ridge maintenance magnets rolled straight into my driveway, and two guys hopped out in boots and cheap sunglasses. One with a scraggly goatee, one with a spiderweb tattoo on his neck, walking straight toward my fence with a crowbar and a clipboard like they were clocked in. "Can I help you, boys?" I called, wiping my hands on a rag. Scraggly did not even look at me at first. "Yeah, move your truck. We got a work order. This fence is coming down. It is an encroachment on the entrance sightline," he said. And Neck Tattoo waved a sheet of paper with the HOA logo. "Karen says either you move or we move you." I stopped at the little property stake in the ground. Felt something in me go from scared to cold, pulled out my phone. Hit record and held it up. "Great. Say that again for the camera. Tell the judge you are about to tear down my fence on land that is not in your HOA without a real court order," I said. That finally made Scraggly glance at the phone, swear under his breath, and jerk his chin at his buddy. "Man, this is not worth it. Let Karen handle it," he muttered. And as they backed toward their truck, Neck Tattoo pointed the crowbar at me and said, "Enjoy the junk view while it lasts, old man. Next time we will not come alone." When their taillights disappeared, my hands were still shaking. Not because I thought those two were special, but because I finally understood Karen was willing to send muscle to test the line and see if I would fold. That night, Hannah sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall, and said softly, "I hate feeling like I am trespassing in my own kitchen. I hear a truck, and my chest hurts, and I did not have a single joke left." The next morning, I drove down to the county building and asked for every document with my address on it. Plat maps, deeds, zoning, all of it. And that afternoon, our kitchen table looked like one of those detective boards from TV papers, spread everywhere, while I traced lines with my finger and read dry legal descriptions out loud until it was absolutely clear in black and white that our little rectangle of dirt sat completely outside Maple Ridge's recorded boundaries. No covenant, no easement, no mention of the HOA at all. I stuffed copies into a thick folder and wrote in big black marker on the front, "This is my land." Not to impress anybody, just to remind myself I was not crazy. A few days later, a guy about my age knocked on the door holding a casserole dish and looking like he might bolt. "Hey, I am Mark. I live on Alder Court inside Maple Ridge," he said. "My wife made lasagna, and I thought maybe you should see this." Then pulled some printed emails from his jacket. He explained that after Karen tried to fine his neighbor over a kid's basketball hoop, he had started saving board emails, and one of them, signed by her, said, "If we make life difficult enough for Miller, he will either sell or beg to join. Either way, Maple Ridge gains control of that entrance lot." Hearing that in my own kitchen felt like getting punched twice, once for the plan, and once for how casual she sounded writing it. Mark slid the papers over and said quietly, "Most of us are scared of her fines, but what she is doing to you, that is not right." Then gave me the number of a real estate attorney he trusted and headed home. A few days later, I was in a small office above a coffee shop with that folder on a lawyer's desk. A woman named Laura Calm Eyes Messy. Stack of case files behind her. She read in silence for a while, pen tapping a yellow pad, then looked up and said, "So, here is the good news. Jake, their covenants mean nothing to you. They have about as much legal authority over this house as a bowling league. This email shows they are trying to pressure you off your land for their benefit, and they are getting bold, which means sooner or later they will cross a line even the sheriff cannot ignore. Your job is not to win arguments. Your job is to collect evidence. Buy cameras. Good ones do not swing first with your hands or your mouth. Assume a jury will watch every interaction on a slow Monday." So that weekend I mounted motion cameras on every corner of the house on a pole, by the driveway, on the shed, facing the property line, all feeding into a recorder and a cloud backup. Hannah called the place Fort Miller and tried to smile, but I could see her jump every time my phone buzzed. It did not take long for the next shot. One night, the front window blew inward. While we were watching a movie, glass raining across the living room, a rock the size of a softball skidding across the rug and tied around it with dirty twine was a note that said, "Final notice. Move or we make this place unlivable." And the deputy who came out took photos and bagged the rock, but all he could really say was, "Without a face on camera or a plate, we can tie to it. There is not much we can do, sir." And that night, Hannah cried into my chest and whispered, "Maybe we should just give them what they want. Pave the driveway, hide the truck. Whatever it takes. so I do not jump every time a car slows down. And hearing that from the toughest person I know did something to me. It burned away the last bit of maybe this will blow over, and left nothing but this stops here. The morning everything flipped, my phone buzzed just before sunrise with a motion alert from the front camera. I tapped it and saw a tow truck idling at the end of my driveway, then another behind it, then a pickup with Maple Ridge security on the doors, and finally Karen's black SUV. My heart kicked up, but my hands were steady. I shook Hannah awake and said, "It is happening. Go downstairs, lock the door, call 911, and tell them people with tow trucks and a forged court order are on our land, and you are scared." And she nodded, grabbed the bag we had packed, and disappeared into the basement. I picked up the "This is my land" folder and walked outside into the cold air. Karen stepped out of her SUV like she was walking onto a stage, white suit heels sinking into my gravel clipboard in one hand and a rolled document in the other. Two security guys flanking her with their arms folded. "Mr. Miller," she called, voice sweet and loud. "Today, Maple Ridge is finally resolving this long-standing violation at our entrance. Per this court order from the county, we are authorized to remove abandoned or non-compliant structures affecting community safety and values. That includes your so-called work truck. And this shed," she said, pointing at my workshop like it was toxic then. Nodded to the tow driver. "Hook it." He stepped over the property line with his chain, and I pointed at the camera blinking above the gate. "Every lens here is recording whatever you think you are holding. If it did not come from the courthouse downtown, it is not a court order. It is a felony waiting to happen," I said. She laughed sharp and short. "You really think your little gadgets and Google law degree are going to stop progress, Mr. Miller? You are one man with a rusty fence standing in the way of a multi-million-dollar community. This is happening whether you cooperate or not," she said. And the tow driver reached for my bumper. That is when the first siren cut through the air, a patrol car taking the corner. Fast lights bouncing off my siding, another right behind it. And for a second, everybody froze. Karen switched gears, instantly pasted on a worried face, and hurried toward the first deputy as he stepped out. "Officer, thank goodness we have a homeowner obstructing a lawful enforcement action. We have a court order signed by Judge Harper. We are just trying to keep our community safe," she said, shoving the rolled paper into his hands. The sheriff himself got out of the second car. Same older guy who had stood in my living room staring at broken glass not long before, and as the deputy unrolled the document and started reading, the sheriff watched his face, then took the paper and read it himself. "Which judge did you say signed this, ma'am?" he asked. "Judge Harper. He oversees this district," she answered, without missing a beat. The sheriff tapped the bottom of the page and said, "Funny. I have known Harper 20 years. 20 years, he spells his name with an E, not an A, and I have also never seen him issue an order in this font in my life." And one of the younger deputies had to cough to hide a laugh, because the whole thing looked like it came from a template website. I walked down off the porch and held out my folder. "Sheriff, if it helps, I have the county maps my deed and an internal HOA email where she says in her own words that if they make life difficult enough, I will sell or beg to join, so Maple Ridge can gain control of this lot. Plus everything you see here is on camera," I said. Karen spun and glared at me. "You sneaky little—" she started, but he cut her off without even looking at her. "Ma'am, what you have handed me is not a court order. It is a bad imitation of one. That alone is a crime on top of that. We have your own words describing a plan to force a man off land that is not under your HOA's jurisdiction. And right now, with these trucks and these men on his side of the line, you are not enforcing anything. You are committing trespass with heavy equipment, he said. Then nodded at his deputy. Cuff her. For a second, she just stared like the words did not compute. Then the cuffs clicked around her wrists, and she twisted to look at me over her shoulder and hissed, "This is not over, people like you. Do not win people like me. Build communities. People like you. Drag them down." And I heard myself answer, tired but clear. People like me mind our own business until somebody decides that is not allowed. And they put her in the back of the cruiser. One of the security guys joined her for carrying more hardware than the sheriff liked the tow trucks left empty, and you could practically feel Maple Ridge watching from behind their perfect curtains. Later, there were hearings and charges and carefully worded statements. The news did a short piece about an HOA president accused of forging documents and harassing a neighbor who was not even a member. Maple Ridge voted in a new board and hired a management company that actually reads maps, and the settlement. We got covered the broken window, the legal bills, and a little extra for the months. Hannah flinched at every tire on gravel. My fence is still not perfectly straight. Truck still sits where I can see it from the porch when I drink my coffee. The cameras are still up, partly out of habit, partly to remind myself I'm allowed to draw a line and mean it. So if you have listened this far, let me ask you something. Where do you think that line should be? How much power should an HOA, a boss, a school, any little kingdom of clipboards and bylaws have over your actual life before you say, enough? Because if my place had been dangerous, full of trash and rats, maybe Maple Ridge would have had a point, but what we are really talking about here is a work truck and a crooked fence that did not match their brochure. Do you think I pushed it too far by lawyering up and turning my home into Fort Miller? Or do you think Karen got exactly what she earned when that fake authority of hers ended in the back of a patrol car instead of in front of my porch? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me if you have ever gone up against an HOA or a neighbor or a manager who got drunk on a little bit of power. Tell me where you drew your line, because somewhere out there. Right now, somebody is checking their mailbox with their stomach in a knot, wondering if they are crazy for wanting to keep what is theirs. And your story might be the thing that finally makes them say, no, this is my land too.